your service on the battlefield and beyond. 3 Bravo.
All right, what's going on, everybody? I'm Liam Cogan. This is the 3 Bravo podcast. And today we're doing a veterans benefits breakdown, and we're going to be shaking it up a little bit this week, introducing a new segment to the benefit breakdown. It's called Veterans Benefits Breakdown Newsweek. So however you're looking at this, watching it on YouTube, Spotify, this is the week of February 25th. And we're going to just be going into some of the greater news that affect veterans benefits. The new administration has been shaking a lot of stuff up, and I've gotten kind of a couple different requests to just do a deep dive on the information and make some easy takeaways for everybody. So I'm going to stick with the highlights here, nothing super in-depth. We're not going into some of the really nuanced stuff a lot of people are talking about. You know, where VA dollars are being spent and how advertising dollars are being spent and what executives are being paid. There's like a lot of crazy stuff going on right now, shaking up kind of how the Veterans Administration, Veterans Affairs Administration is being run. Now that they're, letting people go, we have a new a new secretary. There are a lot of questions going around about, how are things going to change and are they going to affect me, and are they going to change my benefits? So I'm going to hop into some of that. Some things I like, some things I don't. I've spoken about this before. Just, I support this administration. I voted for this administration. I think this is, a necessary culling of the, vacuous, spongy herd of bureaucrats in DC. I think things definitely need to be shaken up. It was just looking lazy and sloppy, and so many gross mishandlings of certain situations I'm not going to get into now. I'm generally into the shaking of the tree and changing things up in DC. I do want to say that I am veterans first and foremost and far and away above for every issue. And I do get afraid when we start talking about penny pinching Veterans Affairs dollars and benefits and things that are actively helping the veteran community, right? Because when you're talking about certain communities of people or certain sections of government spending and waste, there are plenty of places where I am happy to start chopping dollars and seeing where the spend is going before I'm ready to say, yes, I think we should be cutting spending at the VA. So let's kind of jump into that and get a better take on what that means, what that looks like, and what's actually going on, right? Because with the disinformation machines that exist, I mean, think about where we were 4 years ago or 5 years ago now, just talking about, fake news. Everyone was laughing at fake news. Like what a ridiculous thing to say, fake news, and saying it all the time. And then lo and behold, we're living in this world where you can't get away from fake news. People are spinning every single story in two ways, and it's a little right, and it's just avoiding the truth. It's a white lie here. It's a white lie there. Incredibly difficult to digest any level of media and stay informed in a way in which you actually have a grasp of what's going on. So I am going to try and help you get away from this tenuous grasp that we all have on the news and at least break down our benefits so we understand what the VA is doing. So as we talk about layoffs, efficiency, in the new administration, you have to start with the new secretary, Doug Collins. So something to understand, something to track on as it stands today, the 25th of February, 2025, Doug Collins and the new VA, so Doug Collins, the new VA secretary, they have laid off 1,400 probationary employees, okay? And they've done so in order to save around $98 million or more annually in labor costs. And they have a return to work policy for the DoD. So that's DoD wide. Doug Collins is just supporting it. He can't really, mess with that. He's got his own parameters. Here's something to understand. Okay. If you're a military person, you're listening to this, you need to do a little time machine in your brain and just remember okay, what were we getting paid for in the military at any given moment? And it's like sometimes to pick your nose and sit around and stare at the sun while you're, get beat, do push-ups, do like crazy dumb things because you're getting paid a salary and you're on the clock at all times. So, if you want to stick around or you want to make a mistake and they want you to stay around all freaking night and all freaking day, it's like, yeah, you're making like $1 an hour, but you're doing some of the dumbest things you could possibly be doing while on the clock, like picking up brass or moving rocks. Really, they can do anything to you there. So in the DoD civilian world, there is also this level of bureaucratic thinking where a lot of workers are just existing in their role and doing poorly, but there's no like internal examination because the gears of the machine are so clogged up that you're not looking at the internal gears. You're just looking at the check engine light, right? And they're just trying to turn the check engine light off. And if the check engine light's off, it's like, okay, everything's fine. That's really it's gross simplification, but it's really true. And here's the deal. If you don't like that some disabled veterans are being fired, and I do this not to say they're not disabled or not to say that they're not veterans or that it's not happening. I do the little air quote here because if you are a disabled veteran and you are working for a government job, number one, you earned a federal hiring preference. So a federal hiring preference is basically when you go to get a federal job after your stint as a veteran, you get basically a point preference. So if you served during GWAT, you get 5 points. Okay. If you have a certain degree of service-connected disability or a spouse with a disability, you get a 10-point preference. And there are different ways to kind of look at that. There are different things that this is like very broad strokes, right? I'm not going to go into the whole federal point preferences and transitioning out of the military and getting into a federal job. But those point preferences do a lot to get you hired into a federal government position as a veteran. So you have this disability, you get a 10-point preference. Okay. So just understand that anyone that you're hearing about who's disabled as a veteran and they were one of the people who were in a probationary period where they were finding out if these jobs were necessary or functionally correct, and got rid of them. If you're a disabled veteran and you were in one of those jobs, you got a 10-point preference to get into the job in the first place. Now, the other thing, and I'm just painting the picture here, the other thing you need to understand is that if your job no longer serves the function, or you're not doing a good enough job to show that you should be reallocated somewhere else or held on to, what is the conversation to be had, right? If you're not doing a good job and or if your job no longer serves a purpose to the current administration's VA, what are we looking for here? Like, where's the outrage? If you can't do something for your place of work, if it's the VA or not, you shouldn't just be paid an $80,000 a year salary to do something they don't need you to do, right? So yeah, you can be generally outraged at like these little microscopic views of a massive government organization. And if you are like truly outraged by what's going on there, do something yourself to help. Like you can legitimately help these people find a job, find the person who it is in whatever media you consumed, an article on LinkedIn, an article on the internet, a YouTube video. Find that person that you're worried about, that disabled veteran, find their LinkedIn profile and help them any way you can. Like if you are truly concerned, because that's what you can do. Because they're not going to have that job because it no longer serves a function or they didn't do a very good job while they were doing it. That's the only way to cut it. Because you're a disabled veteran does not give you, defended status. You don't have a protected status as a human being. You're not an endangered animal. We really do need to show up as disabled veterans. We have to make a good name for ourselves. And if you're no longer serve a function or you're not doing a good enough job, you'll have to move on. A lot of people have to move on. Just because we're veterans does not mean we deserve preferred treatment. We earned benefits. We did not earn a job for the rest of our lives. You have to go out and earn that job every day. Okay, you didn't earn a guaranteed position for the rest of your life. You earned a position, and you have to continue to earn that position. It's like a little philosophical there, but it really just is true. And I just hate seeing people complain about that or use that as a jumping off point to make a larger point about this administration. It's like, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Just because Doug Collins is shaking up the tree here, and they're getting rid of positions, it doesn't just mean it's a bad thing that people are losing jobs. Sometimes we live in a world of excess where they just do silly things with a poorly founded and poorly managed budget, and somebody's got to be the bad guy, and that's him right now. So here's another thing I want to say about Doug Collins, and I will say this as well, as I've been skeptical of him and things he's said in the past about veterans benefits and who is deserving of them. So I'm still watching him under a magnifying glass. But I will say another good thing about Doug in the new administration is that if you follow the VA on any platform, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, their messaging for the past couple of years has just been horrendous. Like, the information they're putting out is not good. I'm almost certain that their marketing program is being run by non-veterans. And if I'm wrong, guys and girls that are working there, what are you doing? What have you been doing? How are the masses of veterans so underinformed and you have such a massive following? Like, if I had this following that you had, I could just absorb your followers. It'd be so easy to inform people, and you are just dropping the ball magnificently. But I don't know if this is Doug Collins or a new marketing professional up in the upper echelons or the lower. I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it with these public service announcements. Okay. Doug Collins has been getting in front of the camera. He has a very demanding job, but he's been getting in front of the camera and talking to the veterans using the Veterans Affairs platforms. It's been really, really beneficial. It's been very helpful. He's openly stated he's not cutting benefits. It's not going to happen. He is very firm on this. Now, if he reneges, what are we going to do? Okay, he's just reneging, right? A guarantee is good. A guarantee is as good as the person giving it, right? So we'll keep our eyes out. We'll stay informed, but generally speaking, he is getting in front of the camera and he is saying exactly what is going on at the executive level and all the way down, trickling down through the VA, which I'm just more than in support of. The VA is also, so, and if you're thinking that so if they cut 1,400 people, okay, since the new administration got in, that is a monster swath of people, but it's a small percentage of their workforce. And understand this, while doing so, with all of this turnover, with all of this turmoil, with all of this press, losing all of these people, somehow this current VA has reported processing 1 million claims already this year, 2 weeks earlier than they did the previous year. So I'm looking at this in two ways. Processing a VA claim takes, as you know, as a veteran, months. So this new administration is going to take this million claims in two weeks earlier than 2024. They're going to take that and run with it. It's a great presser. I'm going to need to dig into what this means and report back, and follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I'll be posting the information there. But getting 1 million claims done in 2 weeks, does that mean you've processed their initial claim, which was started in 2025, which would therein be your responsibility wholly? Because that'd be crazy. That's about a month in, 1 million claims. That's good if that's the metric. However, if the claims processed are finishing claims, like they've gone through the entire claims process, which we all know takes at least 6 months, more like 8 to a year, then they're basically just reporting on numbers that aren't really theirs. So something to look at. Always keep your eyes open, ears open, but mostly keep your mind open and think about the things that you're seeing, right? I could see 1 million claims already this year and just blindly believe that that's them. Or we could do a little bit of research and we can figure out, okay, let's find out where these claims are coming from. And that's going to be on me to do a little more digging. We're going to have to actually reach out to the VA and get some accurate numbers, and they don't post reports. The big giant bureaucratic system. They don't post the reports often. It's once a year. So I'm going to try to dig to the bottom of that. I'll put it out on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Follow me on there, like I said. And another thing I want to hit, okay, and this isn't part of this administration, and the Newsweek is not going to be an administrative breakdown of Trump's regime. Are they doing a good job or not? That's not the point. It's just to get pertinent information that's changing, has changed, or is on the board for changing for veterans benefits and veterans affairs at large. Economically and financially, our updates are looking very easy to convey. So this year we're getting a smaller cost of living adjustment, so COLA. We're getting less COLA than we got in 24, and we're getting less COLA than we got in 23. Those numbers were really big. So you had like 8.5, I believe, in 23, and you had 5.5 or 6.5 in 24 because they were trying to chase these inflation numbers down. Now that things are cooling down and stabilizing, I think we're going to be seeing, a little bit smaller on the COLA scale. So our cost of living adjustment is down to 2.5%. We saw a lot of cooling in inflation towards the end of last year. Say what you will. That's what you get. We can always talk to our senators. If you don't like any of this information, you can email me, but you could you'd get a lot further emailing your senator, your Congress people that represent you. That's how this whole thing is supposed to work until we got so big and separated that we started looking at them as rock stars and not reaching out and doing the dang thing. But so that 2.5% cost of living adjustment, you're not going to really feel too much of that down at 10% to 30%. And you're going to feel even less if you don't have a dependent. So if you're a disabled veteran above 30% with a dependent, you're going to be seeing, just a higher percentage because things compound. You're getting a lot more for a dependent at 30%, and then you get the 2.5%, and you're going to see a larger return on that cost of living adjustment. So kind of moving on to the healthcare and wellness sector, all of these with the VA, all of these things are kind of going to touch in certain ways. So what I want to get into is the only thing that we've heard about really like any kind of motion in this current regime with the veterans benefits, anything, right? Other than Doug Collins saying your benefits will not go away. And he guaranteed that in his little Instagram video. And I saved it. So if they get rid of it, I'll know. So we're going to look at the PACT Act news. It's really the biggest news to come out of this short period of time. So there was a Senate resolution on the PACT Act protections. So Senate resolution on PACT Act protections. So it's not the PACT Act that's being overviewed, overhauled, changed. Your benefits aren't changing. But they were trying to pass a bill to protect certain parts of the PACT Act. The Senate voted against a non-binding resolution introduced by Senator Richard Blumenthal, who's a Democrat from Connecticut. This resolution aimed to ensure uninterrupted funding and prevent any cuts or delays to healthcare benefits provided under the PACT Act. This does not mean that your benefits are being cut. This does not mean that they are being changed. This does not harm your benefit. This does not change anything about your benefit. If you're one of those people who is getting a new disability benefit or an enhanced GI benefit, which this year your GI Bill, if you served in incongruent terms, your GI benefits have expanded. If you want to learn more about that, go to our website, which is launching very soon, so you can't go to it right now. But I have a full article written on it to understand it. It's very simple, but it's just expanding GI Bill benefits to people that may not have been able to access their full 48 months, but instead had to access 36. That's really going to affect people who are reservists, who had like a short amount of activated time, and people who did very, very short enlistments. So keep your eyes and ears open. But again, this resolution isn't changing that. So the resolution that was introduced was to protect that right. So it's basically a bill that would go on top of the PACT Act as a shield of armor. And the Senate voted against it. So it's not good. It's not bad. It just means that they haven't had a concerted effort to say that, no, these will not change ever. The GI Bill, things like that. So the next bit of news to report out of a similar breath is proposed bills to eliminate burn pits. So in a proactive effort to prevent future toxic exposures, there's a few bipartisan bills that have been introduced to eliminate the use of burn pits. These bills seek to enhance protections for veterans under the PACT Act and invest in alternative waste disposal methods, thereby addressing the root cause. So it's basically taking the PACT Act acumen, all of this burn pit and like chemical use, and saying, okay, let's fix the root cause instead of just giving people money for their stage 5 cancer. And it's a step in the right direction, obviously. Once we understand that certain things are incredibly bad for us, we mitigate if we can, right? You're not going to mitigate blast exposure to military people. We can figure out different timetables to use blasts, but really when it comes down to brass tacks and you're deployed and you need to shoot 10 rockets to shoot down, a VBID driving at your fob, you're shooting 10 rockets to try to shoot down a VBID that is charging at your fob. And you're not supposed to shoot more than 2 in a day, right? There are certain parts of war that are just going to happen, and there are certain things that we can do that are just kind of negligent, which, burn pits would be one of those things. So that bill is introduced, or bills are introduced to kind of get at the root cause of these burn pit cancers, which is a big spurning on of the PACT Act. So I want to jump into some military and defense news and employment considerations. So I already kind of tapped on federal hiring preferences. I'm going to double tap on that a little bit. In this current state, a government job may not be the thing you're looking for. Now, understand that government jobs are pretty cushy. I'm sure we all know the GS that was working at your team or your platoon or whatever, who was a fat, lazy turd who never did anything and never did anything right. And they made 3 times as much as you did. So the era of the overpaid, lazy GS might not be, it might be over. It may be over. I don't think it is, but there's a chance that you might not want to use those, 10 preference points to go after a government job at this point in time. And people are claiming also that like veterans are being laid off disproportionately to non-veterans during these hirings and firings. There have been a couple articles on that. I'm going to wait and see and do a little research of my own before I proclaim that yes or no. And my early consensus is going to be maybe the number is disproportionate because there were more lazy veterans than there were lazy civilians. That would be the only thing that would make sense to me, because if you were looking at optics and you were coming in as the new secretary of the VA and someone said, hey, should we fire more veterans than we should fire civilians? I would say, hey, no, don't do that. That sounds really, really dumb and really bad for me. And silly, right? Just go based on performance. That's what this new admin's all about. So as you hear things like that, think a little before you just accept what they're saying. Really, as a whole, there isn't a ton going on other than the shakeup at the VA, and it looks like they're going to continue processing claims and doing what they're supposed to do on time. Now, I will say this. I was on the VA website the other day, as I am almost every day, and there was a very slow lag time where certain pages didn't load. I don't know if anybody else had that experience or if it was just my internet, but everything else was loading fine. So I'm waiting to see what will happen here. But stay tuned. I'm going to see, and let me know. Shoot out in the comments and let me know if there's something that you want me to dive into. Send me a personal message, whatever. And let me know also if this forum is a good way to deliver news about what's going on in the VA benefits world. Is this something that you want to see more of? If you do, tell me. If you want to see it weekly, monthly, daily, whatever, just let me know how you like it, and I can shorten up the format, maybe give it daily, or I can keep it about this length, about 25, 30 minutes length. Easy to digest on the way to work, or when you get to work, throw on YouTube in the background, whatever. Is this a good way to break down these benefits changes at the state and federal level? Give me a shout. Let me know what you think. I'm Liam Kogan. This is 3 Bravo, and this was your Veterans Benefits Breakdown Newsroom. Talk to you guys later.